Have you ever felt like you were drifting through life, disconnected, searching for meaning, but never quite finding it? What if the answers you've been chasing weren't out there in the world, but buried deep within you? Answers hidden in shadows you've avoided your entire life. Today, we're diving into the mind of Carl Jung, a legendary psychoanalyst who revolutionized our understanding of ourselves and the world around us. He didn't just study the mind, he mapped it like an explorer charting unknown territories. By the end of this video, you'll discover how confronting your deepest fears might just unlock the life you've always wanted. Jung believed that life wasn't just a random series of events or a race towards success. He argued there was a deeper meaning waiting to be uncovered, but only if we dared to face the darkest corners of our psyche. You see, Jung wasn't afraid to confront what most of us fear: the unconscious, the shadow, the hidden fears and desires we bury so deep we forget they even exist. For him, the truth wasn't found in avoiding conflict, but in meeting it head-on. And here's where it gets fascinating. Jung wasn't just a theorist spouting abstract ideas. His discoveries were forged through his own struggles. Around the age of 30, he faced what he later described as a horrible confrontation with his unconscious. He had visions, heard voices. He even feared he might be losing his sanity, possibly slipping into psychosis or schizophrenia. Imagine that for a moment, standing at the edge of your own mind, unsure if you'd ever find your way back. But instead of running from these experiences, Jung leaned in. He asked the questions most of us avoid. Who am I? Why do I feel this way? These moments shaped his groundbreaking ideas, concepts that still define psychology today, like personality types, the shadow self, and the quest for meaning. Born in 1875 in Switzerland, Jung was the son of a pastor, a man devoted to religion, but limited by rigid beliefs. Young Jung respected his father's spirituality, but those same rigid limits planted the seeds for a lifelong internal conflict between faith and skepticism. This tension would eventually inspire his fascination with the unconscious. As Jung entered adulthood, he didn't shy away from the complexity of life's biggest questions. Instead, he sought to understand them, not just through intellectual study, but through personal experience. Around the age of 30, Jung faced a period of inner turmoil so intense it shaped the rest of his life. He experienced vivid visions and haunting voices, leading him to question whether he might be slipping into psychosis. Instead of fearing these experiences, he saw them as opportunities to explore the depths of his own mind. Jung's willingness to confront his unconscious, his fears, his shadow, and his doubts helped him develop some of the most influential psychological theories of our time. He believed that the answers to life's greatest questions aren't found in avoiding our inner conflicts, but in confronting them. For Jung, life wasn't a riddle to be solved, it was a mystery to be lived and revealed. This belief, that the darkest parts of ourselves hold the keys to our deepest truths, remains one of the most powerful legacies he left behind. Jung's journey wasn't an abstract, theoretical pursuit. It was rooted in his own life, his own struggles, and his own search for meaning. His ability to turn personal hardship into universal insight not only redefined psychology, but also taught us that understanding ourselves means facing the shadows we've long ignored. So, what about you? Are you ready to face yours? This is the purpose of this inner adventure. As Jung described, it was the real challenge of life. Like all of us, he faced moments of confusion, doubt, and crises. But instead of running away from these difficulties, he embraced them. Jung believed that moments of crisis and uncertainty were not obstacles, but guides that pointed toward a deeper understanding of ourselves. To him, meaning was not something found in comfort zones, but something achieved through facing one's own fears and through introspection. From an early age, Jung realized that life was more complex than it seemed on the surface. He saw a depth in the human experience that the psychologists of his time were not exploring. It was then that Jung began a unique kind of journey, not to conquer lands or achieve external success, but to explore the unknown within himself. Originally interested in medicine, Jung had no initial inclination toward clinical psychology. However, his growing interest in mental illness led him to psychiatry. In 1900, Jung began working at a psychiatric hospital where he studied patients with schizophrenia. It was also in this hospital that Jung first encountered the work of Sigmund Freud, the father of psychoanalysis. As Jung delved into Freud's ideas, he eventually came into direct contact with him. The two began exchanging letters and quickly developed a friendship and stimulating intellectual relationship. They often discussed Freud's work, and over time, Jung rose through the ranks of psychoanalysis, becoming Freud's protege. Freud believed that Jung was the right person to carry his legacy forward. However, Jung was not limited by Freud's theories. He often expanded upon them in radical ways. While Freud believed that much of human behavior was explained by unconscious impulses, especially those of a sexual nature, Jung began to feel dissatisfied. He believed that Freud's ideas were too limited, focusing excessively on the biological and material aspects of the human mind. For Jung, the human mind was something much greater. It was like a vast and mysterious territory, full of dream symbols and connections that transcended time and culture. This difference in vision ultimately drove Jung away from Freud. While Freud saw the unconscious as a storehouse of repressed desires, Jung saw it as a gateway to something far greater. To Jung, the unconscious was like a self-regulatory system that sought to maintain balance. He also developed a groundbreaking idea about the structure of the mind, which he believed consisted of three key layers. The first was the ego, the conscious mind. This is the part of us that interacts with the world around us and forms our sense of identity, the inner voice we hear when we think, even right now as you read this. The second was the personal unconscious, a storehouse of forgotten memories and deeply repressed emotions unique to each individual. Finally, there was the collective unconscious, Jung's greatest contribution to psychology. It was the idea that beneath our personal experiences lies a shared reservoir of universal symbols, archetypes, and instincts that connect all of humanity, transcending culture and time. Through his theories, Jung redefined the way we think about the human psyche. For him, life wasn't about avoiding the dark corners of the mind, but about exploring them. Only by facing these shadows could we find true meaning and unlock our full potential. This is a deep and universal level of unconscious that all human beings share. Jung paved the way for a deeper understanding of what it means to be human, and his ideas remain relevant not just for understanding our minds but also for understanding our connection with others. Jung's brilliance meant that there would inevitably be divergences between him and Freud, but their separation wasn't only due to professional disagreements. It was also linked to Freud's belief that sexual desires were the primary source of human behavior. Jung, however, argued that this perspective was far too narrow. He believed that the pursuit of meaning in life played an equally important role in shaping the psyche. These ideological differences created a chasm between the two that was never fully overcome. The rupture between Jung and Freud was painful, but it marked a turning point for Jung. It became clear that Jung's departure from Freud's circle was much bigger than a personal issue. It was a division that shaped the entire field of psychology. Freud's legacy eventually evolved into psychoanalysis, while Jung carved a completely new path called analytical psychology. This path led Jung to some of the most profound insights about the human experience. His ideas offer a roadmap for anyone seeking to better understand themselves. But his theories were not perfect nor universally accepted by all psychologists. Perhaps the most important concept Jung presented to the world was the shadow, one of the four main archetypes he described. The shadow is composed of all the parts of ourselves that we repress, ignore, or deny. It contains traits we consider negative, such as anger, envy, or greed, but it also holds qualities we admire in others but refuse to recognize in ourselves. It's like a psychological clutter drawer, out of sight, but not out of mind. The shadow inevitably finds ways to infiltrate our lives, often through what Jung called projections. For example, imagine you're at a party and meet a loud, noisy extrovert trying to start a dance circle. You've never liked people who seek the spotlight, and you don't know exactly why. You roll your eyes thinking, I would never act like that. But what if your reaction wasn't just simple annoyance? What if it was a reflection of something hidden and buried deep within you? The shadow scares us because it forces us to confront parts of ourselves that we don't like. We spend our lives pushing these parts down, pretending they don't exist. But according to Jung, this is precisely why so many of us feel lost and disconnected. The secret, Jung said, is that the shadow is not inherently bad. It's simply unexamined. The more we run from it, the more power it has over us. The more power it has over us. But when we turn to face it, we regain control. By integrating these forgotten parts of ourselves, we come closer to wholeness. Jung believed this confrontation with the shadow was one of the most crucial steps in the search for meaning. If we learn to face the parts of us that make us uncomfortable, we can start living more authentic and fulfilling lives. However, Jung didn't stop there. He believed the shadow wasn't just an accumulation of individual fears and failures. It was part of something much greater. For him, the shadow was an essential component of a broader journey he called individuation. Individuation wasn't about becoming perfect, it was about becoming whole. It meant accepting all parts of ourselves, both the light and the dark. This concept was central to Jung's work. Individuation is the process of becoming who we truly are, not just who we think we should be. But here's the challenge. Individuation doesn't happen when we avoid our problems or run away from our fears. It happens when we face them directly. Jung believed that every person is born with vast potential, but as we grow, we learn to suppress parts of ourselves to fit into society. We put on masks, what Jung called the persona, to please others and avoid conflict. Over time, we start believing that the mask is who we really are, but deep down, we know something is missing. We feel an emptiness, a discomfort, because we've lost contact with our true selves. The individuation process involves removing these masks, confronting the shadow, and embracing our complexity. It's not an easy process. It requires us to face parts of ourselves we'd rather ignore, to confront painful memories and experiences, and to accept aspects of our personality that society has taught us to hide. Jung warned that without this journey, we end up projecting our unresolved problems onto others. We blame the world for what we cannot accept in ourselves. But by embracing our complexity, by integrating both the light and the dark, we begin to find peace, purpose, and a deeper understanding of what life truly means. One of Jung's most revolutionary ideas was the concept of the collective unconscious. Unlike Freud, who believed the unconscious was a personal storehouse of repressed desires, Jung argued that there was a deeper layer, a universal unconscious shared by all of humanity. This collective unconscious, Jung said, was filled with archetypes, universal symbols, and patterns that appear in myths, religions, and stories across all cultures and time periods. Archetypes such as the hero, the mother, the wise old man, and the trickster reflect fundamental human experiences that transcend any specific culture or historical era. For Jung, these archetypes weren't just symbols. They were living forces within the human psyche, shaping our thoughts, dreams, and behaviors. By recognizing these patterns in ourselves, we can better understand our lives and the challenges we face. The collective unconscious also reminds us that we are not alone in our struggles. The experiences we live and the obstacles we face are part of a much larger human story. Through this understanding, we find not only personal meaning, but also a connection to something greater, a timeless and universal aspect of being human. We are connected to everyone who came before us and to all who will come after. Our existence is not isolated. It's deeply intertwined with the collective human narrative. As Jung once said, we are not of today. We are not even of yesterday. We are of an immense age. For Jung, understanding the unconscious wasn't merely an intellectual exercise. It was a way to bring meaning to our lives. By connecting with the wisdom of the past, we can begin to understand the present and discover our place in the world. Jung believed that one of the most direct ways to access the unconscious, both personal and collective, was through dreams. Dreams, he argued, are far more than random or meaningless images. They are windows into the deepest layers of our psyche. In dreams, the unconscious speaks to us in the language of symbols and metaphors. The characters we meet, the places we visit, and the events that unfold in our dreams often reflect our deepest fears, hidden desires, and unresolved conflicts. Dreams also reveal the archetypes at work in our lives, the hero's journey, the confrontation with the shadow, and the search for wholeness. For Jung, analyzing dreams wasn't about finding quick answers or simple solutions. It was an invitation to engage in a dialogue with the unconscious. By interpreting the messages our dreams send us, we can gain profound insights to guide our personal growth. When we pay attention to our dreams, we start to uncover the hidden forces shaping our lives. We can confront our fears, embrace our potential, and move closer to the wholeness that Jung believed to be the true purpose of life. Jung's ideas challenge us to rethink what it means to live a life with purpose. He reminds us that life is not about avoiding discomfort or seeking external validation. It's about embarking on a journey inward. It's a journey to confront our shadow, embrace our complexity, and integrate the unconscious parts of ourselves. By doing so, we don't just find personal fulfillment, we become part of something much larger, a shared experience that transcends time and culture, connecting us to the wisdom of the collective unconscious and helping us discover our place in the great narrative of humanity. For Jung, the meaning of life isn't something to be found out in the world. It's something to be uncovered within ourselves. It's revealed through the individual process of integrating the conscious mind and the unconscious, and through the courage to face the parts of ourselves we've long avoided. So, what is the meaning of life, according to Jung? It's not a destination. It's a journey toward wholeness. And this journey begins the moment you decide to look within, to face the unknown, and uncover the truth that's been waiting for you all along.